Zenthara stared at the viewing screen with 4 eyes wide open. The alien ships approaching their fleet looked like metal boxes with fire coming out the back. She had seen many strange vessels in her 30 years as a military analyst for the Galactic Coalition, but nothing quite this primitive. "Those engines are chemical propulsion," said Commander Velkorian, shaking his scaled head. "Haven't seen that technology in 800 years. The Coalition flagship Stellar Dominion floated in space with 12 other massive warships. Each vessel carried enough firepower to destroy a planet. Their quantum disruptors could tear holes in space itself. Their plasma cannons could melt asteroids in seconds. Compared to these new aliens, they were gods of war. "They're broadcasting something," reported the communications officer. Static filled the bridge speakers, followed by broken words in Galactic Standard. "Greetings. Peaceful. We come. No harm. Please respond." Zenthara leaned forward, in her chair. The voice sounded nervous, almost afraid. These creatures knew they were outmatched. Smart of them to approach with peace signals. "Should we destroy them?" asked the weapons officer. "They could be scouts for a larger invasion force." "No," said Admiral Thekmore. "Let's see what they want. Open a channel." The main screen flickered, showing the bridge of the alien vessel. Zenthara saw bipedal creatures with pale skin and dark hair. They wore simple uniforms that looked handmade. No fancy materials or energy patterns like proper military gear. I'm Captain Kim Daeho of the human vessel Soul's Pride," said one of the aliens. His voice was steady now, more confident. "We represent the United Earth government. We come seeking peaceful contact with your coalition. Humans. So that's what they called themselves. Admiral Thekmore activated his translator. "I am Admiral Thekmore of the Galactic Coalition. You have entered our space without permission. Explain your presence." "We did not know this space belonged to anyone," Captain Kim replied. "Our home system is 3 jumps away. We recently developed faster-than-light travel and wanted to explore. We mean no threat to your people." Zenthara almost laughed. 3 jumps with those primitive ships probably took them months. The Coalition could cross the same distance in hours. "What is your military capability?" the Admiral asked. Captain Kim looked uncomfortable. "We have defensive weapons only. We do not wish to fight anyone." "Show us these weapons." The human captain nodded to someone off-screen. The view changed to show the outside of their ship. Zenthara saw several tube-like structures pointing outward from the hull. "These are kinetic projectile launchers," explained a new voice. The screen showed another human, this one wearing engineer clothing. "I am Park Jinwoo, Chief Weapons Engineer. Our ships fire solid metal projectiles at high speed for defense." Silence filled the Coalition bridge. Then someone started laughing. Soon half the officers were holding their sides, tears in their eyes. "Metal projectiles?" gasped Commander Velkorian. "They throw rocks at their enemies?" "Not rocks," said Park Jinwoo seriously. "Tungsten steel slugs, precisely manufactured, with guidance systems." This made the Coalition officers laugh even harder. Zenthara found herself smiling too. These humans were like children showing off slingshots to adults with plasma rifles. "Very impressive," said Admiral Thekmore, trying to sound respectful, while fighting back laughter. "And what damage do these projectiles cause?" "At full acceleration, each slug carries enough kinetic energy to penetrate most armor types," Park explained. "We can fire up to 200 per minute from each launcher. 200 projectiles per minute." Zenthara did quick math in her head. Their smallest ship carried 40 launchers. That meant 8,000 metal slugs flying through space every minute. It sounded like a lot until you remembered that one plasma bolt could destroy their entire fleet. "Fascinating," the Admiral said. "Well, Captain Kim, your people seem harmless enough. We will grant you settlement rights in the Kepler 442 system. It's mostly empty space with a few rocky planets. Perfect for beginners." Captain Kim's face showed relief. "Thank you, Admiral. We accept your generous offer." "There are rules," Admiral Thekmore continued. "No expansion beyond that system, without permission. No interference with coalition trade routes and absolutely no aggressive actions toward coalition members. Understood completely, Kim replied. We only want to build homes for our people. The connection ended. The human ships began their slow journey toward their new home. Zenthara watched them go, feeling almost sorry for the primitive creatures. Think they'll survive? Asked Commander Velkorian. Maybe, said the Admiral. If they're lucky, the Veltari hegemony won't notice them. Those raiders love picking on weak targets. Zenthara made notes in her report. Humans, bipedal mammals, recently spacefaring, no significant military threat. Technology level approximately 800 years behind coalition standard. Recommended action. Ignore unless they cause problems. But something bothered her about the humans. They seemed almost too simple. Captain Kim had answered questions directly without trying to hide anything. Engineer Park had explained their weapons in complete detail. Most new species tried to keep some secrets during first contact. Either these humans were incredibly naive, or they were very confident in their abilities. Given their primitive technology, naive seemed more likely. 3 days later, Zenthara filed her complete report. The humans were granted full recognition as a minor species under coalition protection. They could trade with other members, travel freely through coalition space, and settle their assigned system however they wanted. The report was filed away and mostly forgotten. The coalition had bigger concerns than one backward species playing with metal projectiles. Zen quote. Thara returned to her regular duties analyzing military threats and fleet movements. She occasionally wondered how the humans were doing in their new home, but never enough to check official records. It would be 3 months before she thought about humans again. By then, everything would change. The Veltari hegemony was known throughout the galaxy for 2 things: their powerful plasma weapons and their love of conquering weak neighbors. They had been watching coalition space for new targets when sensors detected the human settlement. Perfect, thought hegemony commander Zelkarath, a primitive species with no real weapons, easy conquest, valuable slaves, and the coalition wouldn't care enough to intervene. He began planning his attack, never bothering to study human capabilities in detail. After all, what could creatures with metal projectiles possibly do against plasma cannons? Zenthara had no way of knowing that her report on harmless humans would soon need a major update. Commander Zelkarath looked at the tactical display with satisfaction. 12 Veltari warships hung in space at the edge of the human system. Each ship bristled with plasma cannons and ion torpedoes. Against primitive humans with metal projectiles, this force was complete overkill. Sir, we're detecting activity around the 3rd planet, reported his weapons officer. Multiple ships launching from the surface. How many? Zelkarath asked. 47 vessels detected so far. More launching every minute. Zelkarath laughed. The humans were panicking, sending up everything that could fly. It wouldn't matter. His ships could destroy 100 human vessels without breaking their energy shields. On Earth, Defense Minister Lee So-young watched the same tactical displays from a completely different perspective. She stood in the underground command center beneath Sol, surrounded by screens showing defensive positions throughout the solar system. Admiral, confirm fleet positions. She spoke into her headset. Admiral Choi Byung-hun's voice crackled back from the flagship Busan's Hammer. All vessels in position, Minister. Mass drivers are loaded and targeted. Understood. Remember, wait for optimal range. Let them get confident. Lee turned to the bank of industrial displays showing Earth's surface. Across every continent, massive construction projects had transformed the landscape. What looked like mining equipment to orbital observers were actually the largest weapons ever built by human hands. The Veltari fleet moved deeper into the system, confident in their superior technology. Zelkarath had conquered 17 worlds using the same tactics. Arrive, demand surrender, destroy any resistance, collect slaves. Simple and effective. Human vessels are moving to intercept, his tactical officer reported. They appear to be forming a defensive line. Of course they are, Zelkarath said. Fire a warning shot. Show them what real weapons can do. The lead Veltari cruiser discharged a plasma bolt that lit up space like a small star. The beam struck an empty patch of vacuum between the fleets, creating a brilliant explosion that faded slowly. In the command center, Engineer Park Jin-woo watched the display without emotion. Their plasma weapons are powerful, he admitted to Minister Lee. But they have to hit their target first. Can our ships avoid those beams? Lee asked. For a while, Admiral Choi's voice answered. Our vessels are smaller and faster, but if they get a direct hit, we're finished. Lee nodded. This was why Earth had prepared other options. Commander Zelkorath watched the human ships scatter after his demonstration. Good. They understood the difference in power. Now for the standard surrender demand. Humans, he broadcast on all frequencies. You are outmatched. Surrender now and become servants of the hegemony. Refuse and we will destroy your entire species. The reply came from Admiral Choi. We reject your terms, Commander. Leave this system immediately. Zelkorath sighed. Why, did primitive species always choose the hard way? Begin the attack, he ordered. Plasma bolts erupted from the Veltari fleet, lancing toward human vessels. The humans scattered in all directions, their ships dancing between the energy beams. Several got hit and exploded in bright flashes. Easy. Targets, muttered the Veltari weapons officer. Their shields can't even slow our plasma. But something was wrong. The human ships weren't fighting back with their primitive projectile weapons. They were just running, leading the hegemony fleet deeper into the system. Sir, called the tactical officer, we're detecting massive energy signatures from the third planet. What kind of signatures? Unknown. Very large electromagnetic fields building up across the surface. Zelkorath frowned. The humans were up to something. On Earth, Engineer Kang Min-ho watched power levels climb on his displays. Fusion reactors across the planet fed energy into the mass driver network. Each driver was the size of a city block, built to launch mining equipment to asteroid belts. Today, they had a different purpose. All drivers report ready, he announced. Projectiles loaded and targeted. Minister Lee spoke into her headset. Admiral, execute Plan Thunderstorm. In space, Admiral Choi received the signal. All ships implement scatter formation. Mass drivers fire when ready. What happened next stunned the Veltari fleet into silence. Earth. Quota's surface erupted with electromagnetic fury. Dozens of massive launchers fired simultaneously, hurling projectiles into space at incredible speeds. But these weren't the small tungsten slugs the hegemony expected. Each projectile was the size of a small building made from dense metals and ceramics. They had no guidance systems, no smart technology. They were simply very heavy objects moving very fast in very precise directions. What are those things? Zelkorath demanded. His tactical officer stammered over the readings. Kinetic projectiles, sir, massive ones. Speed approximately. This can't be right. 15% of light speed. Impossible. No projectile can reach those velocities. Sir, impact in 30 seconds. Zelkorath looked at his display. Dozens of projectiles streaked toward his fleet like metal meteors. His ship's energy shields could stop plasma, lasers, and particle beams, but they were never designed to handle solid matter moving at relativistic speeds. Evasive action, he ordered. All ships scatter. Too late. The first projectile struck a Veltari destroyer amidships. The shield tried to stop it, flared bright blue, then collapsed completely. The projectile passed through the ship's hull like it was made of paper. The destroyer came apart in the expanding cloud of metal and atmosphere. 2 more ships died in the next 10 seconds, torn apart by impacts that released more energy than fusion bombs. The remaining hegemony vessels fled in terror, their plasma cannons useless against enemies who didn't need to get close to kill. Retreat! Zelkorath screamed. All ships, emergency jump to hyperspace. The surviving Veltari warships disappeared, in flashes of twisted spacetime, leaving behind only debris and radiation. In Earth's command center, Park Jin-woo checked his readings. 3 confirmed kills, Minister. The rest have left the system. Minister Lee allowed herself a small smile. Send a message to all human colonies. The defense test was successful. Admiral Choi's voice came over the speakers. Minister, we're receiving transmissions from multiple sources. Other species detected the battle. They want to know what happened here. Tell them the truth, Admiral. Earth defended itself using kinetic weapons. Across the galaxy, military analysts scrambled to understand what they had witnessed. The primitive humans had somehow destroyed advanced Veltari warships using simple projectiles. It didn't make sense according to established military doctrine. Zen quote. Thera sat in her office aboard the Stellar Dominion, reading battle reports with growing confusion. She had classified humans as harmless just 3 months ago. Now they had destroyed a hegemony raid fleet without losing a single engagement. She opened a new file and began typing. Humanity reassessment required. Previous analysis completely incorrect. Recommend immediate detailed study of human military capabilities. Something told her this was just the beginning. Zenthara stepped off the transport shuttle onto Earth's surface and immediately felt heavier than expected. Human gravity was stronger than most coalition worlds. Everything about this planet seemed designed to build strong, tough creatures. The landing facility looked surprisingly normal. Clean metal buildings, organized traffic patterns, efficient operations. Not what she expected from a species still using chemical rockets 3 months ago. Welcome to Earth, Analyst Zenthara, said a human woman in military uniform. I am Colonel Park Min-jung. General Yoon Tae-min is waiting to meet you. They traveled through Seoul in a ground vehicle. Zenthara stared out the windows at the massive construction projects covering the cityscape. Huge mechanical structures rose from the ground like metal mountains. What are those buildings? She asked. Mass drivers, Colonel Park replied simply. We're expanding the network. How many do you have? Currently, about 200 active launchers. We're building 50 more each month. Zenthara did quick math. 250 mass drivers, each capable of hurling building-sized projectiles at near-light speed. The humans were building enough firepower to sterilize entire star systems. They arrived at a military complex built into a mountainside. General Yoon Tae-min waited in a simple office with basic furniture and old-fashioned paper maps on the walls. Analyst Zenthara, the general said in perfect galactic standard. Thank you for coming. Please, sit. Yoon was an older human with gray hair and calm eyes. He looked like a grandfather, not a military genius who had just revolutionized galactic warfare. General, the coalition is very interested in understanding your tactics. Zenthara began. Your victory over the Veltari was unexpected. Was it? Yoon smiled. We simply used the most effective weapons available to us. But kinetic projectiles are considered primitive technology. No advanced species uses them anymore. Exactly, Yoon said. That's why they work so well. He stood and moved to a wall, display showing various ship designs. Zenthara recognized coalition vessels, Veltari cruisers, and dozens of other military craft. Tell me, analyst, what do all these ships have in common? Zenthara studied the images. They all use energy-based weapons. Plasma, lasers, particle beams. Correct. And what kind of defenses do they carry? Energy shields designed to deflect or absorb those same weapons. Right again, Yoon nodded. Every species in the galaxy has optimized their military technology for energy warfare. Shields, armor, tactics, everything assumes the enemy will attack with directed energy. Understanding began to dawn on Zenthara. But kinetic weapons work differently. Much differently. Energy shields are designed to spread heat and electromagnetic force across their surface. They're very good at stopping plasma bolts and laser beams. But a solid object moving at high speed, the shield tries to stop it, overloads from the kinetic energy, and fails completely. Yoon pulled up tactical data from the recent battle. Commander Zelkarath made a classic mistake. He assumed our weapons would behave like energy weapons. When our projectiles hit his shields, he expected them to be absorbed or deflected. Instead, they punched straight through. Why don't other species use kinetic weapons? Zenthara asked. Because they're difficult to make effective, Yoon admitted. You need tremendous acceleration to reach useful velocities. Most species tried kinetic weapons early in their development, found them challenging, and moved on to easier energy solutions. A younger human entered the office carrying data tablets. General Yoon introduced him as Engineer Kang Min Ho. Show her the new launcher design, Yoon told him. Kang activated a holographic projector showing a massive mechanical device. This is our Mark 7 mass driver. It uses magnetic acceleration to launch projectiles at 22% light speed. The scale was enormous. The launcher stretched for kilometers underground, fed by multiple fusion reactors. How much does each projectile weigh? Synthara asked. Depends on the target, Kang replied. For ships, we use dense metal slugs weighing about 50 tons. For fortifications, we go up to 500 tons. Synthara's four eyes widened. 500 tons moving at 22% of light speed carried enough kinetic energy to crack planets. But accuracy must be terrible at those ranges, she said. Not really, Kang smiled. He showed her targeting data. We fire multiple projectiles in calculated patterns. Even if individual shots miss, the target gets hit by something. Multiple projectiles? General Yoon took over the explanation. This is what we call swarm doctrine. Instead of one perfect shot, we fire many good shots. Quantity becomes its own quality. The hologram changed to show a battle simulation. Hundreds of projectiles streaked toward enemy ships from multiple directions. Even with perfect maneuvering, the targets couldn't avoid everything. Your enemies can't adapt, Synthara realized. Energy weapons can be countered with better shields or different frequencies, but kinetic weapons just hit harder. Exactly, Yoon said. We've removed complexity from the equation. Our weapons don't need to be smart or adaptive. They just need to arrive on target with enough energy to do the job. Dr. Nam Hye-jin, introduced as Earth's leading military theorist, joined the conversation. She was a small woman with intense eyes and quick gestures. Analyst, may I ask about coalition military doctrine? She said. Of course. When facing a new enemy, what's your first response? Analyze their weapons and develop countermeasures. Right. You assume enemy technology will be sophisticated enough to counter. But what if it isn't? What if the enemy uses weapons so simple that there's nothing to counter? Synthara thought about this. Coalition tactics assumed enemies would use energy weapons, electronic warfare, complex targeting systems. All of these could be jammed, deflected, or confused with proper technology. But a lump of metal flying through space? No amount of electronic countermeasures would stop basic physics. You've weaponized simplicity, she said finally. We've weaponized reliability, Dr. Nam corrected. Complex systems fail in complex ways. Simple systems either work or they don't. Our weapons always work. General Yoon walked her to the window. Outside, another mass driver was being assembled by thousands of workers and machines. The galaxy has forgotten something important, he said. Wars aren't won by the most advanced weapons. They're won by the weapons that work when you need them to work. 3 days later, Synthara prepared her report for the Coalition Council. The humans weren't primitive at all. They had taken basic physics and engineered it to perfection. While other species chased technological complexity, humans had mastered technological reliability. Her report would change how the galaxy thought about warfare, but it would also make humanity very powerful enemies. The Corvani Empire was already requesting alliance negotiations. But the Nexian collective had begun mobilizing their fleets. They saw humanity's success as a threat to the established galactic order. Zen quote. Thara finished her report with a warning. Humanity had shown that advanced technology could be defeated by perfected basics. If other species adopted human methods, the entire military balance of the galaxy would collapse. She sent the report and hoped the coalition would understand the implications before it was too late. War was coming. And this time, the primitives might win. The Nexian collective fleet filled space like a dark cloud. 300 vessels of living metal hung motionless at the edge of the solar system, their hulls shifting and changing as adaptive technology responded to environmental conditions. Fleet-mind. Vexhara spoke with the voice of 10 million Nexians thinking as one. Humans have disrupted the natural order. Their primitive methods threaten galactic stability. They must be eliminated. Each Nexian ship was a masterpiece of adaptive engineering. Their hulls could reshape themselves to deflect different types of attacks. Their weapons could shift between energy types depending on enemy defenses. They had studied the human victory over the Veltari and designed specific countermeasures. Our shields will adapt to kinetic impacts, announced the fleet mind. Our hulls will distribute impact energy across multiple sections. Human projectiles cannot harm us. On Luna Base, Captain Han Subin watched the massive enemy fleet through tactical displays. The Nexians had brought enough ships to conquer most star systems. Against traditional opponents, this force would be unstoppable. Minister Lee, the Collective, has issued their ultimatum, Subin reported to Earth. Surrender in 6 hours or face complete extermination. Defense Minister Lee So-young's voice crackled over secure communications. What's our defensive posture, Captain? All mass drivers are loaded and targeted. The asteroid belt network is online. Deep space platforms report ready status. Subin paused. Minister, they have adaptive shields. Our standard projectiles might not be effective. Then we don't use standard projectiles, Lee replied. Activate swarm doctrine. Full implementation. Subin smiled grimly. The Nexians had adapted to fight the humans they thought they understood. But humanity had been busy since the Veltari battle. Engineer Park Min-jung ran final checks on the expanded mass driver network. Every asteroid in the belt had been equipped with simple guidance systems and powerful thrusters. Mining stations had been converted to launch platforms. Even the space elevator had been modified to fire projectiles. Network status? Subin asked. 17,000 launchers online, Park reported. From Luna Base to the outer planets, each one loaded with different projectile types. The Nexian fleet began moving deeper into the system, confident in their adaptive technology. Their ships changed color and shape as they flew, preparing for battle against primitive kinetic weapons. Fleet-mind, Vexhara monitored human defensive positions with satisfaction. The humans had built impressive infrastructure, but they were still throwing metal slugs at adaptive armor. Simple physics could not overcome evolutionary technology. Begin the assault, the fleet mind commanded. The first wave of Nexian ships accelerated toward Earth, their hulls rippling with defensive modifications. Sensors detected human mass drivers powering up across the solar system. Incoming kinetic bombardment, reported the collective consciousness. Adaptive shields engaging. What came next defied every expectation. The humans didn't fire single projectiles, or even dozens of projectiles. They fired millions. Every mass driver in the solar system discharged simultaneously. Asteroids modified with simple rocket engines launched themselves toward the enemy fleet. Space stations fired their entire ammunition reserves in continuous streams. Luna Base alone sent 50,000 projectiles into space in the first minute. Impossible, whispered fleet mind Vexhara. No species has this much industrial capacity. The Nexian adaptive shields tried to respond to the incoming swarm. Each projectile was different. Some were dense metal, others were rocky asteroids, some were hollow shells filled with smaller projectiles. The collective intelligence struggled to adapt to so many variables at once. Captain Subin watched the tactical display as humanity's true strategy became clear. The Nexians could adapt to any single type of attack, but they couldn't adapt to everything at the same time. Second wave launching, announced Park Min-jung. Deep space platforms are firing. Hidden throughout the solar system, platforms disguised, as communication satellites revealed their true nature. Each one fired streams of different projectile types, some spinning, some tumbling, some splitting into multiple warheads, mid-flight. The Nexian shields overloaded trying to process millions of individual threats. Their adaptive technology, designed to counter specific weapon types, couldn't handle such overwhelming diversity. The first impacts began. Nexian ships' hulls tried to redistribute kinetic energy, but there was too much energy coming from too many directions. Ships that could survive direct hits from plasma cannons crumpled under avalanches of simple metal and rock. Shields failing, reported the collective. Hull integrity compromised on multiple vessels. Fleet Mind Vexishara watched in horror as his adaptive fleet was torn apart by the most primitive weapons in the galaxy. Ships designed to evolve during battle were being destroyed by attacks that couldn't evolve at all. Retreat to minimum safe distance, the Fleet Mind ordered. But the humans weren't finished. Engineer Kang Min-ho activated the final phase of swarm doctrine from his control station on Earth. Belt network is go, he announced. All asteroids are moving. The entire asteroid belt came to life. Thousands of rocks, some the size of mountains, began accelerating toward the Nexian fleet. Each one was guided by simple computers and pushed by chemical rockets. Primitive technology, but devastatingly effective when used in such numbers. The Nexians found themselves caught in a crossfire of projectiles coming from every direction. Their adaptive systems completely broke down, unable to process so many different threats simultaneously. Fleet Mind called a ship commander. We're taking massive casualties. Recommend immediate withdrawal. Vexhara had no choice. The collective, intelligence that had conquered dozens of worlds, was being defeated by organized chaos. The humans had turned quantity into a weapon more powerful than any quality. All ships, emergency jump to hyperspace, the Fleet Mind commanded. We will return when we understand their methods better. The remaining Nexian vessels disappeared in flashes of twisted spacetime, leaving behind the wreckage of over 100 ships destroyed by flying rocks. In the aftermath, Captain Subin surveyed the battlefield. Debris from Nexian vessels drifted through space alongside spent human projectiles. The most advanced adaptive fleet in the galaxy had been destroyed by the simplest possible weapons. Casualty report? Minister Lee asked from Earth. 0 human losses, Subin replied. We never let them get close enough to fire back. And ammunition status? Engineer Park checked his displays. We expended approximately 60% of stockpiled projectiles. Mass drivers are already being reloaded. Minister Lee was quiet for a moment, then she asked, Captain, do you think they understood what happened to them? Subin considered the question. The Nexians were collective intelligences designed to learn and adapt from every experience. But how could they adapt to weapons that worked precisely because they didn't adapt? Minister, I think that's exactly the problem. They're trying to understand something that can't be understood. Our weapons don't have complex strategies or adaptive capabilities. They just hit very hard. Across the galaxy, news of humanity's second victory spread quickly. The species that had seemed primitive just months ago had now defeated 2 of the galaxy's most feared military forces. But this victory had cost the humans more than ammunition. They had revealed the true scope of their industrial capacity and tactical thinking. Every major power in the galaxy now realized that humanity wasn't primitive at all. They were terrifyingly efficient. Zen quote, Thera received the battle reports aboard the Coalition flagship and immediately understood the implications. Humanity hadn't just won another battle. They had demonstrated that the entire galaxy's approach to warfare was fundamentally flawed. Advanced technology could be countered by more advanced technology. But simple technology, applied with enough scale and intelligence, might be unstoppable. She opened a new report file and began typing her analysis. The galaxy needed to understand what it was dealing with before more species made the same mistakes as the Veltari and Nexians. Humanity was no longer a curiosity. They were a force that could reshape galactic civilization. And they were just getting started. President Shin A-young stood on the observation deck of Earth's orbital command station, watching construction crews work on the planet's latest mass driver. This one was different from the others, larger, more powerful, and designed for a very specific purpose. The galactic situation has changed dramatically, Zenthara said from beside her. The Coalition analyst had become Earth's primary diplomatic contact over the past 6 months. 12 species have attempted to copy your kinetic weapons. 3 have succeeded enough to threaten their neighbors. And the others? President Shin asked. The others are demanding that the Coalition ban kinetic weapons entirely. They claim you've destabilized the galactic balance of power. President, Shin smiled slightly. We didn't destabilize anything, we just showed that the balance was artificial. Below them, Earth's surface was transformed by industrial activity. Mass drivers rose from every continent like metal forests. Orbital elevators carried materials and projectiles to space-based platforms. The planet had become a fortress that could strike targets across multiple star systems. Admiral Jo Seung-ho joined them at the viewing port. He looked tired, but satisfied. 6 months of constant preparation had turned humanity from a curiosity into a major galactic power. President, the demonstration is ready, he reported. Target asteroid has been positioned at the required distance. Excellent. Analyst Zenthara, would you like to observe our latest development? Zenthara's 4 eyes focused on the president with interest. What exactly are you demonstrating? The logical evolution of kinetic warfare, President Shin replied. Admiral, please show our guest to the command center. The command center was built inside a reinforced asteroid in Earth's orbit. Banks of displays showed tactical information from across the solar system. Engineers and military officers worked at stations monitoring the planet-based mass driver network. President, all systems report ready, announced General Yoon Tae-min from the Central Command Station. Target is locked. On the main display, Zenthara saw their target, a small asteroid positioned in empty space 1 million kilometers from Earth. For demonstration purposes, it had been equipped with the strongest defensive shields available in coalition technology. The target represents a typical military space station, Admiral Jo explained. Multiple shield layers, armored hull, point defense systems. Under normal circumstances, it would take a full fleet to destroy such a target. How many ships are you using for this demonstration? Zenthara asked. None, President Shin replied. Fire when ready, Admiral. The displays showed power building in Earth's newest mass driver. This one was built into a mountain range, stretching for hundreds of kilometers underground. Multiple fusion reactors fed energy into magnetic acceleration coils the size of city blocks. Firing, announced the weapons officer on the tactical display. A single projectile launched from Earth toward the distant target, but this wasn't a simple metal slug or guided warhead. This projectile was an asteroid, a chunk of rock and metal weighing over 10,000 tons, accelerated to 30% of light speed. You're firing asteroids? Zenthara gasped. Modified asteroids, corrected engineer Kang Min-ho. We attach simple guidance systems and communication arrays. Basic technology, but effective. The projectile covered the distance to its target in seconds. When it hit, the explosion was visible from Earth orbit even without magnification. The target asteroid and its defensive systems simply vanished, replaced by an expanding cloud of superheated plasma. Kinetic energy equivalent to a small fusion bomb, Admiral Jo noted casually. But no radiation or electromagnetic pulse, just pure destructive force. Zenthara stared at the empty space where the target had been. The Coalition's most advanced shields hadn't even slowed the projectile down. This is what you wanted to show me? She asked. This is what we wanted the galaxy to understand, President Shin replied. We're not interested in conquest or aggression, but we will defend ourselves with whatever means necessary. And if other species develop similar weapons, then warfare becomes too destructive for anyone to start, said Dr. Nam Hae-jin, joining the conversation. Mutually assured destruction through kinetic bombardment. General Yoon pulled up strategic displays showing human settlements throughout their assigned star system. Every planet, moon, and asteroid had been fortified with mass drivers and defensive installations. Analyst, what would happen if someone tried to invade this system now? He asked. Zenthara studied the displays. Thousands of mass drivers pointed outward from every major body. Asteroid belts had been converted into ammunition reserves. Even the gas giant moons carried kinetic weapons. It would be suicide, she admitted. Any attacking fleet would face projectile fire from multiple directions. No shields could handle that much kinetic energy. Exactly. We've made our space uninvadable through simple physics and industrial engineering. President Shin led them to another section of the command center, where diplomatic communications were handled. Messages from dozens of species scrolled across multiple screens. The Corvani Empire wants to purchase kinetic weapon technology, she noted. The Veltari hegemony is requesting a non-aggression treaty. Even the Nexian Collective has sent diplomatic envoys. What do you tell them? Xanthara asked. We tell them the truth. Our weapons aren't complicated. Any species with sufficient industrial capacity can build mass drivers. The technology itself isn't secret. Then why haven't more species succeeded in copying you? Engineer Park Minjung answered from a nearby station. Because they're trying to make our weapons more complex instead of simpler. They add targeting computers, adaptive guidance systems, smart warheads. All of that reduces efficiency and increases failure rates. Our weapons work because they're stupid, added Admiral Joe. They don't try to outsmart enemy defenses. They just hit hard enough to destroy anything in their way. President Shin received a message from Coalition Command requesting an immediate response. She read it quickly and turned to Xanthara. The Coalition Council wants to regulate kinetic weapons under the Galactic Warfare Accords, she said. They're proposing limits on projectile size, velocity, and industrial production. And your response? We decline to participate. Humanity never signed the Galactic Warfare Accords. We're not bound by limitations on how we defend our territory. Xanthara realized the full implications of humanity's position. Every other species in the galaxy had agreed to limit their military technology according to coalition standards. Humanity had developed their weapons outside that system and now possessed capabilities that couldn't be regulated or controlled. The galaxy is afraid of you, she said finally. Good, President Shin replied. Fear prevents wars better than any treaty. As if to prove the point, urgent messages began arriving from multiple coalition members reporting the withdrawal of aggressive fleets from border regions. Species that had been preparing for territorial expansion were suddenly reconsidering their plans. President, Admiral Joe reported, we're detecting massive fleet movements throughout coalition space. Everyone is pulling back to defensive positions. Because they're all wondering if their neighbors have developed kinetic weapons, General, Yoon observed. No one wants to attack someone who might be able to throw asteroids back at them. Dr. Nam pulled up her latest analysis. Galactic military spending has decreased by 40% since our demonstration. Most species are focusing on defensive technologies instead of offensive capabilities. President Shin nodded with satisfaction. That was always the goal. Make war too costly for anyone to start. The final piece of the demonstration was a live communication link to Coalition Command. Admiral Techmore's face appeared on the main screen, looking considerably less confident than during first contact. President Shin, he said formally, the Coalition Council has voted to offer humanity full membership status with all associated rights and protections. In exchange for? President Shin asked. A promise not to share kinetic weapon technology with non-coalition species. Counteroffer, President Shin replied. We'll share our defensive technologies with any species that commits to peaceful exploration and scientific advancement. No military strings attached. Admiral Techmore looked uncomfortable. The Council may not approve such terms. Then the Council will continue to deal with an independent humanity that makes its own decisions about military technology. After the communication ended, Xanthara found herself reconsidering everything she thought she knew about galactic politics. Humanity had achieved in 6 months what most species took centuries to accomplish. They had forced the galaxy to acknowledge them as equals through sheer industrial capability. What happens now? She asked President Shin. Now we continue building, President Shin replied. More mass drivers, more defensive installations, more industrial capacity. We make it clear that Earth and human colonies are permanently off limits to aggressive action. And if someone calls your bluff? President Shin smiled. Analyst, we're not bluffing. We really can throw asteroids at anyone who threatens us, and everyone knows it. Looking out at Earth's transformed landscape, Xanthara understood that the galaxy had changed forever. Humanity had proven that advanced technology, could be defeated by perfected basics. Complex systems could be overwhelmed by simple systems.